They say miracles don't exist for people like us, the ones sleeping in shelters, rationing meals, watching our breath fog in January air. They say keys belong to people who can afford locks. But on a Tuesday morning, half frozen and desperate, I found a brass key pressed into the snow beside a bus bench, and I believed in something I couldn't name yet. My daughter Emma was 6. She'd stopped asking when we'd have our own room. The shelter rotation kept us moving. 3 nights here, 2 there, always packing our duffel by dawn. That morning, she'd drawn a house on the fogged window of the 7 a.m. bus. 4 walls, a triangle roof, a door with a round knob. When I picked up that key, cold and solid against my palm, I thought of her drawing. The tag attached read only an address: 447 Millwood Street. No name, no note, just numbers stamped into weathered leather. I should have turned it in, should have kept walking. But I had $11 in my pocket, a daughter who deserved better, and nothing left to lose. By noon, I stood in front of 447 Millwood, a narrow brick row house with boarded windows, knee-high weeds punching through snow, and a for sale sign so faded the phone number had bleached away. The lock on the side door was brass, old, exactly the size of the key in my hand. It turned. Chapter 1. The Threshold. The door groaned inward on rusted hinges, releasing air that smelled of wet plaster and decades. I stood in the gap, one boot inside, listening. Wind through cracks, dripping somewhere deep. No voices, no movement. Just the house breathing around its own bones. "Hello?" My voice barely carried. Emma clutched my jacket from behind. The kitchen revealed itself first. Avocado green cabinets from another era, linoleum curling at the edges, a porcelain sink stained copper by mineral water, counters thick with dust. But the structure felt sound. No major holes, no collapsed ceilings. The back door had been deadbolted from inside. Someone had left deliberately. In the front room, furniture sat draped in painter's cloth. A sofa, a chair, a low table with a drawer. Shafts of winter light cut through gaps in the plywood, painting lines across the floor. Emma's fingers found mine. "Is this ours?" she whispered. "I don't know yet," I said, but my heart was already counting. 2 bedrooms upstairs, a bathroom with fixtures intact, radiators along the walls, a roof that seemed whole. I pulled the cloth off the table. Underneath, someone had carved initials into the wood. RH 1987. The drawer stuck, then slid. Inside, envelopes bundled with twine, a lease agreement dated 2019, and a handwritten note on yellowed paper. "To whoever finds this, I'm sorry I couldn't finish. The taxes are 3 years behind. The bank won't wait. But the bones are good. Someone with patience could make it whole again. Don't let it die empty. RH." The lease showed the last tenant, Robert Holloway. Rent paid monthly until April 2022, then nothing. The property had gone into municipal limbo, abandoned, unclaimed, tangled in bureaucratic vines. The kind of place the city forgets until someone complains or a developer notices. We had no legal right to be here. But the door had opened. The note had asked for patience. And Emma was already exploring the second bedroom, her voice bright as she called out, "Dad, there's a window seat." That night, we slept on the painter's cloth with our duffel as pillows. The house creaked its language around us, wood settling, pipes ticking, wind testing the boards. For the first time in 8 months, my daughter slept through until morning. By dawn, I'd made my decision. We'd stay quiet, fix what we could, learn the house's story, and hope the city's paperwork moved slower than our ability to make this place breathe again. The key had opened more than a door. It had opened a question. Could we belong to something again? Chapter 2. First claims. The water still ran, which meant someone had kept the main line active. I traced the pipes to the basement, a low-ceilinged space with stone foundation walls and a boiler that looked decades old but functional. In the corner, tucked behind a stack of paint cans, I found a toolbox. Real tools, hammer, wrenches, screwdrivers, a level. Everything coated in dust but usable. Someone had meant to return. Emma helped me pull the plywood off one front window. Winter light flooded the room, revealing wallpaper peeling in long strips, exposing plaster beneath. The patterns were floral, maybe from the 80s. We stacked the boards outside, moving carefully, keeping noise low. "Who lived here before?" Emma asked, running her hand along the windowsill. "A man named Robert," I said. "He had to leave." "Why?" "Sometimes leaving isn't about wanting to." She accepted this. She'd learned not to ask why we'd left our last apartment, why Mom wasn't with us anymore, why adults made impossible choices. The neighbors noticed us by the third day. Mrs. Alvarez from 445 came to her stoop as I carried bags of trash to the curb. She was 70s, gray hair in a tight bun, arms crossed. "That house been empty 2 years," she called. "You buy it?" "Working on it," I said carefully. She studied me, my worn coat, my second-hand boots, the way Emma appeared in the doorway behind me. Her expression softened fractionally. "Robert was good people," she said. "Tried to keep it up after his sister died, but the taxes—" She shook her head. "City'll take it eventually if nobody claims proper." "How long do I have?" "Tax auctions in spring, maybe April." She turned to go inside, then paused. "There's a hardware store on Baxter. Tell Sal that Rosa sent you. He might go easy on credit." The house revealed itself in layers. Beneath the kitchen linoleum, original hardwood, water-damaged but salvageable. Behind the living room wallpaper, built-in shelves, their brackets still solid. In the upstairs closet, a box of photographs showing the same narrow face across decades, Robert at different ages, always alone or with an older woman who shared his eyes. One photo's back had writing, "Me and Diane, last Christmas at Millwood." She said, "Keep the house warm. I'm trying." The writing matched the note in the drawer. I started small. Patched the kitchen window frame with wood filler. Replaced blown fuses in the basement box until lights worked in 3 rooms. Scrubbed the bathroom sink until porcelain showed through stains. Each task was a claim, not legal, but moral. The house was waking up, and we were the ones holding vigil. Emma decorated her room with drawings taped to walls. Houses, gardens, families. She'd found colored pencils in a kitchen drawer, probably forgotten by Robert's sister decades ago. Every night she added one more image to her gallery. "I like it here," she said one evening, watching me caulk gaps around the bathtub. "Me too." "Will they make us leave?" I didn't lie to her. "Maybe, but we'll be ready." She nodded, solemn and trusting, and returned to her drawings. The house creaked its approval. Chapter 3. Hidden Blueprints. The radiator in the front room hissed when I bled the air valve, then glowed warm for the first time in years. I sat beside it with Emma, feeling heat seep into walls that had known only cold. That's when I noticed the baseboard panel sat crooked. I pried it loose with a screwdriver. Behind it, a gap in the wall, and inside that gap, a rolled tube of paper secured with a rubber band that crumbled at my touch. Blueprint. Hand-drawn, meticulous, dated 1985. Floor plans for 447 Millwood, with annotations in neat architect's script. Foundation reinforced 885. New beam supports kitchen ceiling. Attic access sealed. C-note. A separate sheet, folded small, carried a different handwriting. Looser, urgent. Diane, if you're reading this, I sealed the attic because the roof needs proper repair before anyone goes up there. The support beam cracked in 84. Don't trust it until it's fixed. Money's tight, but it has to be done right. Robert, 1986. I looked up at the ceiling. The attic door was in the hallway, painted shut years ago. I'd assumed it was storage. Now I understood. Robert had been protecting his sister from a dangerous space, waiting for funds that never came. I climbed the ladder carefully, scoring the paint seal with a utility knife. The door opened onto darkness and the smell of dry rot. My flashlight found the source. A massive support beam running the roof's length, split down the middle like a broken bone. Temporary bracing held it. 2x4s propped at angles, rope lashing, clearly improvised. It had held for decades, but it wouldn't hold forever. One bad storm and the ceiling would come down. Emma found me staring at the blueprints an hour later. "What's wrong?" "The roof," I said. "The part we can't see. It needs serious work." "Can you fix it?" I didn't know. The beam alone would require lumber, bolts, and skills I wasn't sure I had. But the blueprints showed Robert had tried, had cared, had left a trail for whoever came next. That afternoon I walked to Sal's hardware store on Baxter. An old man in a canvas apron looked up from his counter. "Rosa send you?" "Yes, sir." He studied me the way Mrs. Alvarez had, seeing past clothes to intention. "What do you need?" I showed him the blueprint, explained the beam, admitted I had maybe $30 for materials. He didn't laugh, just tapped the paper thoughtfully. "I knew Robert," Sal said finally. "Good kid. His sister raised him after their parents passed. She died in that house, and he couldn't let it go." He pulled a notepad. "Tell you what. I'll front you the lumber if you promise me two things. You're actually living there, and you're actually trying to save it. Both true. Then we'll work something out." He loaded my borrowed cart with a salvaged beam, lag screws, brackets, and a better drill than I'd found in Robert's toolbox. "Pay me when you can," he said. "And tell me when the roof's sound. I want to see it." Walking back to Millwood, lumber balanced across my shoulder. I felt the weight of more than wood. I was carrying Robert's unfinished work, Diane's last home, a responsibility I hadn't asked for but couldn't refuse. Emma met me at the door, eyes bright. "Are we fixing it?" "We're fixing it. If you're enjoying this journey so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from." Chapter 4, The Storm Test. The beam went up in 3 days of careful work, jacking the roof fractionally, removing the splintered section, bolting the new timber into the old frame. Sal stopped by to inspect, nodded his approval, and left a box of roofing nails on the porch. "For next time," he said. But time was accelerating. Mrs. Alvarez mentioned the city assessor had driven past twice. Mail arrived. Not for me, but forwarded from the municipal office, a notice about the spring tax auction, listing 447 Millwood as scheduled for sale. April 12th, less than 3 months away. I called the number on the notice, navigated automated menus, finally reached a clerk who explained the math. $8, $400 in back taxes plus penalties, payment in full or the property would be auctioned to the highest bidder. I had $11 when we arrived. Now I had $7 and a growing debt to Sal. Emma sensed the tension. She drew more houses, but darker now. Roofs with holes, doors hanging open. I found her one night sitting on the window seat in her room, staring at the street. "We're going to lose it, aren't we?" I wanted to lie. Wanted to promise certainty, but she'd learned to read my silences. "I don't know, Art," I said, "but we're not giving up." The storm hit on a Thursday. February cold, wind driving sleet against the windows, temperature dropping to 15 degrees. I'd patched what I could, caulked every gap, but the house was old and drafts found roots. We huddled in the living room near the radiator, bundled in every layer we owned. At midnight, the power failed. The house went dark and suddenly cold. I found candles in the kitchen drawer, lit 3, and we waited. The wind howled through places I hadn't sealed. Water dripped somewhere, maybe the bathroom, maybe the kitchen. Emma pressed against my side, shivering. "The roof's going to hold," I said, more prayer than promise. Above us, the new beam creaked. The rope bracing I'd left as backup groaned. I listened for the crack, the collapse, the end of everything we'd fought for. It held. By dawn, the storm had passed. Power returned. The house stood intact, damaged, drafty, exhausted, but standing. I climbed to the attic to inspect the beam. Solid. The bolts had taken the stress exactly as Sal said they would. Robert's careful planning 40 years ago had made this repair possible. but the bathroom ceiling had leaked. Water stained the plaster, pooling near the light fixture. I traced the source to old caulking around the roof vent, now blown loose by wind. Another repair. Another cost. Mrs. Alvarez knocked that afternoon with a thermos of soup. "Y'all made it through," she said. "Barely." She looked around the living room, the patches, the clean windows, the drawings on Emma's walls. "Robert would be proud," she said quietly. "This place felt dead. Now it feels like somebody's home. For 3 more months." She set the thermos down. "There's people who'd help, you know, if they knew the story, if they understood what you're doing. I don't want charity. It ain't charity when you're saving something the whole block lost." She touched the windowsill, clean, sanded, restained. "This house is part of our history. Diane taught kids piano here in the 70s. Robert shoveled everyone's walks every winter. We watched this place die when he couldn't hold on." She met my eyes. "You brought it back. That matters to more than just you." After she left, I found Emma in her room adding a new drawing to her collection. The house in a storm, windows glowing yellow, smoke from the chimney, stick figures inside. "That's us," she said, pointing. "That's us," I agreed. The house had survived, but the real test was still coming. Chapter 5. The Ledger's Truth. March brought thaw and complications. The mailbox, which I'd avoided, now carried official envelopes. One from the city, one from a real estate investment company. The city's letter confirmed the auction date, April 12th, 10 a.m., county courthouse. Minimum bid, $8, $400, public sale. The investment company's letter was worse. A pre-auction offer to purchase all back taxes immediately, taking possession before the public sale. They'd done their research, noted the property's location, the intact structure, the development potential. They offered to pay me $500 to vacate quietly before they closed. I was a squatter in their math, an obstacle to profit. Emma watched me read both letters. What do they want? The house. Can they take it? If we can't pay the taxes, yes. She was quiet for a long time. Then, can we ask for help? I'd built a life on not asking, on making do, on self-reliance that wasn't strength but fear of owing anyone anything. But Emma was right. Pride was a luxury we couldn't afford. Sal heard me out when I brought him the letters. He read them slowly, lips pressed thin. "Those vultures," he muttered about the investment company. Then, "But the city's not wrong. Someone's got to pay what's owed." He set the letters down. "What if I told folks? Let them know what you've been doing here? I don't want handouts. It ain't handouts. It's people paying what labor's worth." He gestured at the house through his store window. "You put in 2 months of full-time renovation work. That's skilled labor. That's value. And you saved a piece of neighborhood history." He pulled out his phone. "Let me make some calls." Before I could argue, he'd dialed someone named Marcus, who ran the neighborhood association. The conversation spread faster than I expected. By evening, Mrs. Alvarez had organized a meeting in her living room. 15 neighbors, some I recognized, some strangers. They listened as I explained what we'd found, what we'd fixed, what we'd learned about Robert and Diane. "So you're asking for $8, $400? Someone asked. "I'm asking for nothing," I said. "I'm just explaining why I can't pay it." An older man named Jerome spoke up. "Robert was my brother-in-law. After Diane passed, he fell apart. Couldn't keep up." He looked at me directly. "You did what he couldn't. You honored what she built. That means something." The meeting ended with promises to think, to talk, to see what was possible. I walked home feeling exposed, seen in ways I'd avoided for years. Emma had stayed behind at Mrs. Alvarez's, and when I returned to get her, the old woman handed me a notebook. "Found this in my closet. Robert left it here before he went into the group home. Said if anyone ever fixed the house, they should have it." The notebook was a ledger. Robert's careful handwriting documented every repair from 1987 to 2019. Dates, costs, contractors, materials. and woven through the numbers personal notes. Diane's birthday, painted her room blue, her favorite. New furnace. She'll be warm this winter. Foundation crack repaired. This house will stand another 100 years if someone loves it. The last entry, dated March 2020. Can't keep up anymore. I'm sorry, Diane. I tried. That night I read the ledger to Emma. She listened quietly, then asked, "Are we loving it?" "Yes," I said, "we are." The house had a voice now, not just creaking wood and settling plaster, but Robert's words. Diane's piano lessons. Decades of care embedded in walls. We weren't saving a building. We were honoring lives. Chapter 6. The house remembers. The community moved in ways I didn't expect. Jerome started a small fundraiser at the local church, not asking for thousands, just whatever people could spare. Sal set up a jar at his hardware store. Mrs. Alvarez contacted a local reporter who'd covered neighborhood preservation stories before. The reporter, a woman named Lisa Chen, showed up on a Saturday morning with a camera and genuine curiosity. She interviewed me carefully, asking about the key, the repairs, Robert's notes. She photographed Emma's drawings, the restored radiator, the new beam in the attic. She listened. "Can I see the ledger?" she asked. I handed it over. She flipped through pages, pausing at Robert's notes about Diane. "This is a love story," she said quietly. "People need to hear this." The article ran on Wednesday. Homeless father resurrects historic home. Community rallies to honor past owner's legacy. It was fair, unsentimental, focused on facts and the preservation work. It mentioned the auction date. It included bank information for anyone who wanted to contribute. The response overwhelmed us. By Friday, the church fund had grown to $100. Sal's jar held another $600. Online donations, coordinated through Marcus's Neighborhood Association, added $800 more. People mailed checks directly to the city, marked for $447 Millwood's tax debt. But it wasn't enough. We reached $600 by April 1st, still short by $400 with 11 days until the auction. The investment company called. Same offer, $500 to leave. They'd handle the taxes and take ownership. "Time's running out," the voice said. "Be smart." I hung up. Emma found me that night in the kitchen staring at Robert's blueprint. "What if we lose?" "Then we tried," I said, "and this house got 2 more months of being loved." "That's not enough." "Maybe it has to be." She hugged me fiercely, then went to bed. I sat alone, listening to the house breathe around me, the radiators tick, the floors creak, the walls that remembered Diane's piano students and Robert's careful repairs and now Emma's drawings, all the lives that had made this place matter. Morning brought a knock. Jerome stood on the porch with an envelope. "Me and some of the old-timers talked," he said. "Robert would have wanted this." He handed me the envelope. Inside, a cashier's check for $500. "It's from Diane's estate. Robert was too proud to touch it, said it should stay with the family. But your family now. You took care of what he couldn't." I couldn't speak. He gripped my shoulder. "Make it official. Make it yours." We paid the taxes on April 8th, $8,400 exact, assembled from 15 different sources and 36 people who'd never met us before February. The clerk stamped the receipt, looked at me with something like respect, and said, "Property's clear. Auction's canceled." The deed process took another month. Pro bono lawyer, community vouching, documentation of our residency and the renovation work. On May 15th, the title transferred to my name, not through purchase, but through adverse possession combined with the paid debt and the community's advocacy. Legal, but barely. The kind of outcome that requires people believing in you. Lisa Chen came back to photograph the moment. Emma held the deed copy, grinning. Mrs. Alvarez brought a cake. Sal showed up with a new mailbox already installed before we could thank him. "What now?" Jerome asked. "Now we finish what Robert started," I said. "The roof still needs proper shingles, The back porch needs rebuilding. The garden. I stopped. In Robert's ledger, he'd mentioned Diane's garden. Tomatoes, herbs, flowers she'd given to neighbors. We'll plant again, Emma said quietly, so people remember. The house stood solid now, its windows clear, its walls sound, its history preserved. We'd given it 2 months in the cold, but it had given us everything: shelter, purpose, community, belonging. The key I'd found in the snow hadn't opened just a door. It had opened a future neither of us could have imagined. That night, I hung Robert's blueprint on the living room wall beside Emma's drawings, past and present side by side, the house that remembered and the people who'd remembered it back. The brass key sits on the mantel now, polished and permanent, a reminder that sometimes what we find when we're lost is exactly what was lost before us, waiting for someone to look close enough, care deep enough, and stay long enough to see what broken things can become when love moves in. Subscribe for more true-to-life tales of rebuilding, memory, and hidden history. See you in the next story.